Look at this graph. This isn't a seismograph of an earthquake or a visualization of my heart rate after seeing my tax returns. This is my brain 30 days ago. If it looks like a tectonic plate shift during a lightning storm, that's because it was. I spent a month wearing a clinical-grade EEG headband, tracking every spike and dip in my neurochemistry because, like you, I was tired of being a highly motivated failure. I've tried every time management method floating around the internet, the Pomodoros that felt like prison timers, the planners that ended up as expensive coasters, and the cold plunges that just left me shivering and still unfocused. But look at the data from day 30. The storm has passed. Those jagged peaks have smoothed out into what neuroscientists call alpha-theta coherence. My screen time dropped by 60%. My output tripled. And for the first time in my life, I actually finished 3 different major projects in a single month. If you're watching this and you have 10 brilliant business ideas in your Notes app, but haven't made $1 from any of them, or if you feel like you're a supernova of potential that just keeps sputtering out, your brain isn't broken. You aren't lazy and you don't lack grit. You are simply being forced to run a high-performance operating system on hardware that's being fed the wrong fuel. You likely have the scanner profile, the multi-potentialite brain. Society calls you a jack of all trades, master of none, but that label is a biological insult. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to guide you through the Polymath Protocol. It's the exact system I use to reprogram my numbers system in just 7 days. But before we get to the how, I need to tell you why the trendy dopamine detox everyone is talking about is actually making your brain more fickle and even lazier. To understand the results of my 30-day experiment, we have to identify the biological villain of this story. We've been conditioned to think that dopamine is pleasure, but in neuroscience, we know it's actually the molecule of anticipation. It's the seeking chemical. But here is the problem. We are currently living in an era of what I call synthetic dopamine. This isn't the dopamine our ancestors got from hunting a woolly mammoth, or even the dopamine you get from finishing a difficult book. Synthetic dopamine is synthesized by AI and algorithms. It's the AI-generated sugar high for the brain. Imagine your brain is a supercar. Earned dopamine is high-octane racing fuel. It's stable and powerful. Synthetic dopamine is like pouring cheap, high-fructose corn syrup directly into your gas tank. It gives you a violent surge of high-beta brainwaves, the frequency of anxiety, stress, and frantic task switching, and then leaves your engine gunked up and stalled. When you're a multi-potentialite, you have a naturally high need for cognition. Your brain is literally hungrier than the average person's. Because you crave novelty, the algorithm views you as an all-you-can-eat buffet. It serves you synthetic novelty so fast that your executive control network, the part of your brain used for actually getting things done, gets completely hijacked. You think you're researching a new hobby, but neurologically, you're just a pigeon in a high-tech Skinner box, pecking at a glass screen for a random reward. This is why willpower fails. Willpower is a biological battery located in your prefrontal cortex, and synthetic dopamine is a parasite that drains that battery before you even get out of bed. Trying to willpower your way to productivity while your brain is trapped in a high beta state is like driving a supercar with the parking brake on while the engine is smoking. So how do we fix this? We don't start with a detox that leaves your hungry brain starving. We start right away with step 1 of the protocol, the neural buffer reset. During my tracking experiment, I found that the first 10 minutes of the day dictated the entire brainwave architecture for the next 12 hours. If I checked my phone immediately, I stayed in high beta all day. To counter this, I implemented a micro-action that sounds almost too simple to work, the sunlight revision. Within 20 minutes of waking, you need to get 5 minutes of natural light in your eyes while performing a mental RAM dump. You aren't planning your day, you are simply observing the context switching penalty before it happens. This small action triggers a specific release of cortisol in the morning, the good kind, that sets a timer for your melatonin production later. But more importantly, it moves your brain from the groggy delta of sleep into alpha waves, that sweet spot of relaxed, focused concentration. I followed this with a 5-minute NSDR technique, or non-sleep deep rest. It's a physiological cheat code that lowers your heart rate and tells your nervous system that the perimeter is secure. When you reset your neural buffer this way, you're not fighting your chemistry, you're calibrating it. You're clearing the attention residue from the night before and preparing your RAM for step 1. This helps you regain your focus, but if you're a multi-potentialite, that focus will quickly turn into fickleness the moment a new, shiny idea pops up. This is where most people fail, and it's exactly what step 2 of the protocol is designed to solve by turning your distraction into your greatest competitive advantage. Now listen closely, because this next part is where the trendy productivity gurus will tell you to just pick one thing and stick to it, which is the neurological equivalent of telling a hummingbird to stop flapping its wings and act more like a rock. For a brain wired for range, monogamy with a single project feels like a slow death. My tracking data showed that when I tried to force myself into a narrow, specialist lane, my brain didn't become more productive. It became a protest zone of high beta waves, the signature of a system that is literally vibrating with the stress of boredom. To fix this, we move into step 2 of the Polymath Protocol, the Cross-Pollination silo. The secret isn't to do less, it's to structure the way you do more. You see, your brain has 2 primary networks that are usually at war. You have the executive control network, or the ECN, which is the worker that types the code or writes the report. Then you have the default mode network, the DMN, which is the dreamer that wanders off to think about 14th century plumbing or the physics of black holes. Most people are told to kill the dreamer to let the worker survive. But as a polymath, your dreamer is your greatest asset. It's where your far transfer happens, the ability to take a concept from music theory and use it to fix a broken database architecture. My EEG data revealed that my most creative breakthroughs happened not when I was grinding, but during the handoff between the ECN and the DMN. So instead of a traditional to-do list, I want you to create 2 legs of mastery for your day. No more, no less. You give yourself a 90-minute silo for Project A, and then instead of taking a break by scrolling on your phone, which just floods your RAM with algorithmic noise, you perform an intentional switching ritual. You go for a 10-minute walk or take a shower, activities that keep the ECN quiet but let the DMN run wild. During my 30-day trial, this was the moment my brain waves would dip into that beautiful theta frequency, the state of high-fidelity creativity. Because I wasn't paying the context-switching penalty by jumping to a screen, the attention residue cleared in minutes rather than the usual 23. I was essentially tricking my brain into thinking it was getting the novelty it craved, while my subconscious was busy connecting the dots between my 2 pillars. This is how Leonardo da Vinci operated, jumping from anatomy to engineering to painting. He wasn't unfocused. He was allowing his diverse interests to fuel one another in a biological closed-loop system. But I have to warn you, around the 4th day of applying the system, your brain is going to stage a full-scale coup. This is the boredom threshold, the point where the initial novelty of the protocol wears off and your amygdala, the brain's ancient grumpy smoke detector, starts screaming that you're in danger because you aren't getting your synthetic dopamine hit. My data showed a massive spike in beta waves during this phase. It felt like a physical itch in my skull. Most people interpret this restlessness as a sign that the system isn't working. In reality, it's the sign that your brain is finally beginning to upregulate. It's building more receptors to hear the quiet music of hard work because the loud noise of the algorithm has been muted. This brings us to step 3, hacking the amygdala with identity anchoring. To push through that day 4 wall, we use a technique called temptation bundling. You take that high-friction task, the one that makes the CEO of your brain want to quit, and you pair it with a very specific low-grade sensory reward that you only get during that silo. For me, it was a specific type of dark chocolate and a very particular instrumental playlist. Neurologically, you are bribing the amygdala. You're telling your survival system, look, I know this coding session is scary and dry, but here's a tiny hit of earned dopamine to keep the lights on. By doing this consistently for 30 days, I noticed a profound shift in my neural architecture. I moved from being a seeker of sparks to being a builder of fires. I stopped feeling like a distracted dabbler and started feeling like a system master. If you do this for 30 days, your dopamine system will undergo a radical recalibration. You won't just tolerate hard work, you'll start to crave it. The high beta anxiety will fade, replaced by the calm, steady hum of alpha-theta coherence. You'll become the person who can see the music in the data and the history in the code. You'll finally have a cognitive blueprint that honors your multi-passionate nature instead of punishing it. This protocol will give you the focus and the motivation to finally turn those 10 business ideas into a reality that actually pays the bills. However, all of this progress, every new synapse you've built over these 30 days will be completely destroyed if you continue to make the 3 fatal mistakes that are silently shrinking your prefrontal cortex every single night while you sleep. To find out what those 3 toxic habits are and how to eliminate them before they sabotage your new supercar brain, you need to click on this video right here. I've decoded the data on those as well, and what I found will change the way you look at your nightly routine forever. I'll see you over there.